Who is next? We are next. Welcome into the Hump Day Hotline, everybody, on the Buffalo Fanatics Multicast Network. I am your host, Joe Miller. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired. I'm joined with my co-host, as always, the beautiful Jay Spence, the King. Welcome to the show, Jay Spence.
What's up, man?
And we have two amazingly special guests. One is animated. That would be Joe Marino to your bottom left. And one is in a still form, which is Bruce exclusive, Bruce Nolan on your bottom right. What's up, gentlemen? How you doing tonight, Joe?
Doing good, guys. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this, and a lot of good stuff to get into tonight. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, Bruce, how you feeling?
Okay, first off, I'm plenty animated. Okay, you just can't see me being animated. So I don't appreciate the connotation we're getting off to a start here, Joe. I don't. You know what? Where's my leave studio button? Is it the red X one? Is that the one?
I will bring you back. I have the power to pull you back in. Ask Spence. I've done it to him before.
Yeah, so. He's done it. He'll bring you
I thought
back.
I was out, and they pulled me right back in.
That's amazing. So welcome, gentlemen. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, everybody watching. Bills Mafia, welcome into the show. You are watching live, I'm guessing, on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Wherever you're watching, whatever platform, do us a favor. Jump on that like button. Hump it, as we like to say here on the Hump Day Hotline. Also, share it. Invite some friends. Let's get some Mafia up into this place. We're going to have some good conversation. This is not going to be, what do I want to say, surfacey conversation. We're going to try to dive into some real things. Some stuff has come out. Sean McDermott has said some things that has kind of confirmed what all of us in Bills Mafia and those of us that are content creators have kind of felt and believed for a long time. But before we do that, why don't we start here? Spence, what are your snapshot feelings with the Bills sitting at 7-3, having lost on the play the way that they did versus sitting at 8-2 with another Josh Allen comeback in fourth quarter fashion?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Like Sunday evening, obviously I needed to kind of react. I had to go through my process. But now that I've reacted, and now that I've, kind of had a night to sleep, because the next day I was fine. Obviously nobody wants to see your team lose the way that we lost Sunday. It was just not a play that you want to be on the other side of,
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, listen, losing that game did nothing for our standings. Like, it didn't make us lose anything. We didn't gain anything. It literally was a game that you felt like we could have and should have won. It took a miracle in a sense for them to win it. We didn't do it. We have still everything in front of us. We're still first in the division. We still have our, we can control our destiny as far as beating the Jets and the Patriots to control, what happens in the division. We still have, a couple games coming up that we feel like we should win. So, at this point, 7-3, if you would have told me back in July, like, hey, after 10 games before our bye week, going into the bye, we're going to be 7-3, I think 99% of Buffalo would have taken it.
Agreed. Joe, what are you thinking? How you feeling after all this?
I think the hard part of digesting the loss was the shift, right? You're watching this football game. You never really think that the Bills are playing great. Suddenly they're winning 23-9. The lead's gone. And then Josh Allen has the game-winning drive, 78 yards over 3 minutes. 21-yard touchdown pass to Stephon Diggs. Your guy is the story, right? The quarterback that you have, he's the guy that's the MVP. The receiver that you traded for, Stephon Diggs, that's the guy that caught the game winner. And then, boom, the rug is pulled right out from underneath your feet. And that's what I think the hard for me with that shift in narrative, when you thought you stole one and you feel really good and you're like 8-2 is in your hands. And it's pulled right out from underneath you. I mean, the good thing is that both sides of the coin were pretty good, 8-2, right? We all want that. That's wonderful. 7-3 is not bad. We would all take it. Like Jay said, before the season, you said 7-3 out of the bye. Every single person would have taken it. But now we got to deal with it for 2 weeks, right? And get ready to play the Chargers. But I think that the shift, how quickly it shifted, is what made it kind of tough. That's what kind of took the breath out of me for a moment there.
Yeah, Bruce, you get the opportunity, the luxury, if you will, of having a couple more days to process before you react. And I know that just gives you more opportunity, ample opportunity to check tape than myself, Joe Marino, and Jay Spence. But how are you feeling? How is this loss treating you at this point?
I feel fine about it. I think that 7-3 was, like Jay Spence said, an ideal situation for this team to be in after 10 games. I think the method by which they acquired 7-3 requires some recalibration by Bills Mafia, because I think that a lot of us were expecting 7-3. Our defense continues qualitatively to look the way that they looked on the field. We know what to expect from this high-level Buffalo Bills defense, and maybe we can get a slight step forward from the offense. Instead, we got a completely different looking team in 2020 than we got in 2019. We're throwing the ball all over the place. Our running game can't get anything going. Our defense is all over the place, and they come out the first 4 weeks, and we look like we got to win shootouts the entire freaking year. So I think that because of that, it's not so much the 7-3 that kind of got us a little jarred. It's the recalibration of our expectations of what this team is supposed to look like. Not just what the W and L are supposed to look like, but what qualitatively it's supposed to look like on the field. We think we're going to see a certain thing, and we've seen none of that so far this year. So we have to say, okay, I understand that it doesn't look the way I thought it was going to look, and I need to kind of get used to the new normal for Buffalo Bills. But 7-3 is still good, regardless of if we got there the way I thought we were going to get there versus the way we did.
Yeah, super good. And I wanted to delay the introduction, so I did that on purpose, just in case anybody's wondering, because I wanted people to get into the room. All of your guys' feelings resonate with me, and I feel akin to Joe Marino. And it's funny because Joe Marino and I talk back and forth a lot of times, because we kind of capture very similar emotions. We just kind of come from it. We notice the similar things, and that's what it felt for me. I kind of resonated where Joe was. It was like I was resolved. It was like, okay, Josh hasn't played great. The defense is not playing great. We gave up, we gave up 17 unanswered points in 9 minutes, which is typical of a third quarter. And it is what it is. We're going to lose this game. I'm okay with it, right? Because I didn't have great expectations, high expectations that Josh, with 3.5 minutes left, was going to do what Josh Allen does. And then he did it. And I was like, and I was stunned. And it was like, in my mind, I'm rewriting my entire pod script. Like in my head, it was like, this is going to be completely different than what I thought it was going to be. And then 34 seconds later, we obviously ended up in soul-crushing disbelief land. But let's do this. Let's take just a quick second to go around the horn. We're going to go in reverse fashion. So we're going to go Bruce, Joe, and then Jay Spence the King. Do me a favor, gentlemen. Just introduce yourselves if you can. Tell me where you're from, what you do, and what network you're on if you can. Go ahead, Bruce.
I am the handsome gentleman in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. My name is Bruce Nolan. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Bruce Exclusive. I am the host of The Bruce Exclusive, which is a podcast on the Buffalo Rumblings Podcast Network that you can find every Thursday and Friday mornings, wherever you are currently listening to this podcast, if you are indeed listening to it in audio form.
Awesome. Joe.
Joe Marino. Follow me on Twitter at the Joe Marino. I host the Locked On Bills podcast. It's daily, covering the Buffalo Bills. I also work for the draftnetwork.com. And so draft Buffalo Bills, it's kind of my wheelhouse. So that's me. It's what I do.
Awesome. Jay Spence.
Let's go. It's Jay Spence the King. You can find me on the Buffalo Rumblings Network. The Code of Conduct comes out on Tuesdays, and then on Sundays, I also do the Chop Up with Mookie Hawkins, the Buffalo Bills beat reporter for WFO.
Awesome stuff. And I am Joe Miller. I'm the voice of the Overreaction Podcast, which you can find on Monday mornings on the Buffalo Fanatics Network, and you can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired, as always. And for those of you that are new to this, if you've never been on with us, you have the opportunity to be a part of the show, and we want you to interact, comment, chat, and give us questions when the time is appropriate. Here's the thing. With the amount of people we have on the show, it's going to be difficult for me to get to all the questions and comments. So if I don't get to your question or comment, I apologize ahead of time. Here's what you can do. Jump over to YouTube. If you super chat it, it's going to come up in highlighted form. It's going to get my attention. And I promise you, guarantee you, that your super chat will get read, comment, question, whatever it is. Do us a favor, as always, as Justin just said, jump on that like button, hump that like. But let's get into Buffalo Bills talk here on the Hump Day Hotline, this fine Buffalo Bills bye-week edition. So, Joe Marino, this is what I want to talk about with you real quick. And I'm okay with getting kind of some feelings from the rest of the guys if you have them. It was a coach's decision to not play Mitch Morse in this football game. And by the way, I saw Mitch Morse for lunch last year at the Public House on the lake. That's a big old boy. Like that dude is like 6'6.5". That's a whole lot of man right there. But it was the coach's decision not to play him. We're guessing to give him an extra 2 weeks to recover. Looking back, do you think that was the right decision?
I'm comfortable with the decision. I think it's hard to say it was the right decision now that we have the benefit of knowing that the Bills lost the game and they didn't run the football effectively against a defense that was giving up the 8th most amount of yards per rush in the NFL. So I think when you have the benefit of hindsight, which Bruce Nolan can give you all kinds of philosophical information about what's supposed to happen with decision making and how we should grade decisions. Yeah, it's easy to say that Mitch Morse should have played the football game. This was something I think we were all satisfied with in the moment. Well, Mitch Morse, he has 5 documented discussions so far, or concussions so far for his NFL career, and there's no reason to rush him back. The previous interior offensive line trio, Feliciano at center, Winters at right guard, and Ike Bacher at left guard has been okay. There's some momentum there. We'll see if for the Chargers game you get the extra week with the bye. Well, Sean McDermott kind of fumbled his press conference when he was asked about this and made it like it was, well, he said it was a coach's decision. And coach's decision, we know what that means. He was benched. And so there were some really tense moments in that press conference. I was like uncomfortable. I thought I was watching an episode of The Office, and that's what I love about The Office, because you get uncomfortable. You're like, oh man, I don't know what's going to happen here. You feel this. And Coach McDermott, you can tell he wasn't real happy with how he answered the question. And then, of course, reporters did what they're supposed to do and ask good follow-up questions and force the issue. Yep. And so all of a sudden, Coach McDermott's saying, well, he was a coach's decision and the lineups are week to week. And, all of a sudden you're wondering if the highest paid center in the NFL has been benched. So I understand there's a lot of confusion. For me, the simplest explanation here is that they wanted to give him an extra week, given the history of concussions, given the bye week, given the momentum of that interior trio. But now we're left with a lot of questions about the situation. And I got to be honest, I bet you Sean McDermott is just fine with that. Nobody knowing who his starters are going to be. The Chargers having to think about this, whether it's the smallest amount of competitive advantage. Coach McDermott's probably fine with it. So I think we're going to see Mitch Morse at center when the Bills take the field offensively against the Chargers. But I understand the questions and why this is a point of discussion.
Bruce, clearly that offensive line did not play the way that we assumed that it would had Mitch played center and Feliciano been at right guard. Thoughts? Same question. Like, was it a mistake to not play him, to give him that extra week of rest? Well, extra 2 weeks of rest?
I think that when I watched the offensive lull that happened in the third quarter and into the fourth of the Bills-Cardinals games, you did see some protection confusion that Mitch Morse could have potentially helped with. But like Joe said, at the time, you might not have thought that was going to be the case. Vance Joseph is not known as being an overly effective defensive coordinator. The Cardinals defense has not been overly effective so far this year. It's not a scenario where you thought, gosh, if we don't have Mitch Morse, then this whole thing is going to go downhill. And really, Sean McDermott said 3 things when he was talking about this. He said flat out that he was healthy enough to play, that it was a coach's decision, and that he wasn't being benched. And the issue that we have is that we have a hard time marrying those 3 things together. We can't, as a fan base, say, well, hold on, all 3 of these things can't be true simultaneously. It cannot simultaneously be a coach's decision, also not being benched, also he's healthy enough to play. Those 3 things can't happen. So we're trying to wrap our head around it, when in reality, Sean McDermott, I don't think gives a rat's rump that we don't care about that. I don't think he cares that we're like, well, hold on now, Sean. Well, what happened? He's just, dropping a stick of dynamite in the room and then walking out and waving and going, guys, have fun. I don't think it really matters to him all that much. So because of that, I think that there is a way for those 3 things to be correct simultaneously. And the way that those 3 things can be correct simultaneously is exactly what Joe said. And that is, let's just take another week off. You can simultaneously be healthy enough to play and have a coach decide to not play you. Like, those things can coexist together. So yes, he's healthy enough to play, but I'm going to be on we've been used to this term now because of the COVID world we live in, out of an abundance of caution. Say it with me, guys, out of an abundance of caution, right? We've seen this a million times, right? Well, it's no different than what Sean McDermott did. Out of an abundance of caution, we're going to sit Mitch Morse. Well, technically, he's healthy enough to play, which is why he dressed. So Mitch Morse is healthy enough to play, and Sean McDermott can't say otherwise. He can't say he wasn't healthy enough to play, because then the question is, well, why is he dressed? So yes, he's healthy enough to play, but it doesn't hurt to have him sit another week. Now, if you're sitting him another week out of an abundance of caution, then he's not being benched. That's the way that those three things can simultaneously be all the same at the same time.
Right.
That's the only possible explanation where all three things are true. And that is, yes, he's healthy enough to play. I hope I don't have to. We're going to dress him in the event we have an emergency, because I definitely don't want to have Ryan Bates come in instead of Mitch Morse if John Feliciano goes down at center. That's not something I'm interested in.
Yep.
And I know that because I had Ryan Bates at center and I chose to take him out and to put John Feliciano in. The Bills already said they preferred Feliciano to Bates there. Mm-hmm. So this can all make sense with Mitch Morse. And I think that just marrying those three statements by Sean McDermott is how we do it.
Yeah, we've seen it before. We've seen this coaching staff, particularly Sean McDermott, take the precautionary route with guys even this season, where they've been like, you know what, we've got a relatively weak Dolphins team coming in. We're going to go ahead and sit Milano and Edmonds one more week, even though they could possibly play, just to get them that one extra week of rest. However, the hand grenade upon the hand grenade that sits inside of this conversation is the fact of when he said it's going to be a week-to-week decision. So here's my question, Jay Spence, and this is interesting because we're living in a space where we don't believe, as Bills Mafia for 1 second, and content creators, that this is an all-star cast, in my opinion, in this room right now. We don't believe for a second that Sean McDermott is playing this game where, like, Mitch Morse doesn't start. Like, that world doesn't exist, that Mitch Morse isn't going to play football on this offensive line. And oh, by the way, if the Bills cut him next year, they're going to save $5 million on the cap. However, you're talking about the same coaching staff that walked Quentin Spain out the door to keep Brian Winters in the freaking lineup. So where are you at on that, Spence? Like, is this something to be worried about? Or to Joe's point, is Morse playing when we play the Chargers? He's the starting center.
I'm on Joe's side with it. Like, the way I see it is that, like you mentioned earlier, as fans, obviously we can't put these things together. Like Bruce said, it just doesn't make sense that he's healthy, he dressed, but he didn't play, and the coach decided to not play him, so he's benched. But no, what it is I think it's just an overreaction of a fan base at this point. I really think that, for us to not play, if you're going to put the best combination of guys on the offensive line out there, there's no way that Sean McDermott puts somebody else other than Morse out there in that combination. You know what I mean? Like, he's in one of those combinations. He's the best five Morse is playing. So I just think it's an overreaction. I think that, there should be some caution. Mm-hmm. So next year, I don't think it's a conversation where we're thinking that we're going to cut him or get rid of him and save $5 million, like you mentioned. If anything, I think the conversation over the offseason might be, for health reasons, should he consider retirement? That's a different conversation. But as far as him playing, no, I agree with Joe. I agree with Bruce. I think that, they just said, you know what, we'll give you an extra week. If something goes bad, it's 2020, everything goes bad. So if something goes bad, then we'll put you back in instead of, bringing in whoever that we have that's an eighth string guy, Yeah. So yeah, he was there and available, but I think they wanted to give him that time.
Not you and me. We don't go bad, Spence. You and me, we're right as rain, bro.
We read it.
We right as rain.
Yeah, no, we read it.
Somebody needs to play some romantic music up in this house.
There you go.
Joe Marino, question for you. McDermott said this week that they're going to take a deep dive, which is interesting to me because I don't think it's rocket science. I'm not the smartest guy in this room. Like, there's three guys way smarter than me. But McDermott has said this week that they're going to take a deep dive into the run game this bye week to discover what the issue is. And I house the question this way. What's it going to take for this run game to get these guards playing right? Because to me, it's a guard issue. What's it going to take? Is it just the right combination of guys, or is it scheme? Is it, give it to me, brother? Like, what is going on with this run game?
I think the first thing I want to say is that I'm not interested in more runs. I'm just interested in more effective runs.
Agreed.
I like the Bills script. It's a winning script. But when they need to run the football, they need to be able to run the football, and I don't think they're doing that well enough right now. First thing I'd say is I'm very excited to see the Bills' preferred offensive line for the first time all year. We haven't seen it, right? We haven't seen that middle three of Morse, Feliciano, and Ford, right? We can see that against the Chargers. So that should provide a little bit of a bump. And we saw just how Feliciano back in the lineup would create that type of a bump. So I think getting your preferred guys in there is going to help. I think there's design issues. I'd be interested to see if Bruce would agree with me here. I think the Bills are very willing to have unblocked guys on the edge and allow the offensive tackles and tight ends will climb to the second level without really securing the first level with consistency. And when you don't have speed at running back, that causes a problem, right? So we know that the Bills, Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, they're not guys that have much foot fire. They're not going to really challenge the perimeter. They're between the tackles guys. Well, if you're not doing a good job of making sure that those lanes are wide enough, particularly on the outside, those guys can collapse quick, and you don't have the foot speed to get going. The other thing that I want to say here is that, like, Singletary and Moss have to be better. I got into this a little bit on my pod today about last year how Devin Singletary had 5.1 yards per carry. That tied Derrick Henry for the most yards per carry in the NFL among qualifying players. And what it really boiled down to was Devin Singletary feasted on light boxes. Like only 3.5% of his rushes last year came against boxes that included 8 or more defenders. That was like the lowest in the NFL. And so he feasted on light boxes all year long. Meanwhile, we're very critical of Frank Gore and how ineffective he was. But because he played the role that he did, it opened up opportunities for Devin Singletary to go up against lighter boxes. Zach Moss is not replacing Frank Gore to the same caliber of play. I know that sounds really weird, and Zach Moss deserves the benefit of the doubt because he's a rookie and he started off with a turf toe injury that set him back. And we've seen some flashes, but he hasn't taken away some of those carries from Devin Singletary, which I think opens up the run game in totality. So you've got design issues, you have blocking issues, you have slow running backs, and you have health issues. There's reason to believe that this is going to get better. And hopefully that's a big point of emphasis. Again, I don't want more runs. I don't care about more runs. I just want it to be more effective. And as we get later into the season, December football, cold outside, maybe some elements, hoping to play home games in Buffalo, you better be able to run it a little bit better than you have.
What you got, Bruce?
I think that what I noticed when I was going through some film on this is that, when you ask players like Brian Winters to run outside zone and you run towards him and he has to get in front of a defensive tackle and hold that for a long time, or you ask him on the backside to cut and you ask a running back like Devin Singletary who doesn't have the foot speed to be able to get out on the edge and make a decision quickly, you are inviting that backside defender to come make a play and crash down. And that happens all the time against the Bills. If you're going to do that, you need to use Isaiah McKenzie to hold that backside linebacker. We saw one of the most effective run plays that was actually during that offensive lull in the third quarter. They actually used Cole Beasley in orbit motion to hold the backside defender to keep that person from crashing down on outside zone. And that's a good idea. And it would have been awesome had Brian Winters not screwed it up. So it was going to be a reasonable play, but in this case, you have to have Isaiah McKenzie. You have to have Cole Beasley. You have to have something there to give Devin Singletary or Zach Moss or whoever it is time, if you're going to run outside zone, to be able to see it and make it happen. One of the best runs of the game against the Cardinals was Zach Moss on an outside zone. So it's not like it can't be done. It just needs to be accommodated for two things. Number one, if you run toward Brian Winters, he may not be able to hold it. And if you run away from Brian Winters, he might cut on the backside. And he did a good job there a couple times. But either way, you need to use something to hold that backside defender because you don't have guards on the front side who can hold up. And if you go backside with them, you're still in danger of somebody crashing down. So I think you just have to make accommodations for what you have. And I think schematically, I'd like to see a little bit more of that from Brian Dable. Specifically, I liked the orbit motion. It worked. And if the front side guard, in this case, Brian Winters, when he was running that direction, if it would have gone the way I wanted it to, and he would have gotten in front of Angelo Blackson, then that would have been a good run play.
Yeah. Toss up for the group. And interestingly enough, because we saw Twitter light up, and I know all of us are on Twitter during the game, some of us at different times. And like, it's funny because how even the content creators, as it pertains to Bills Mafia and podcasts and whatnot, like we're on at different times and like we flow differently. But there was a moment in the fourth quarter where like Bills Mafia was like, abandon the run, stop trying to run the ball. And for me, the Bills, I think Dable was calling those run plays because they wanted to, and this was a John Fina point, they wanted to suck that defense back up. But the problem is Josh Allen does not want to throw the 0 to 2, 0 to 4 yard pass plays to Beasley, who even Diggs has said, the dude is always open. Defenses now know if there's an under-over thing or a short high, whatever like scheme, Allen's going 10 to 15. He's not going under. So toss-up question: what's it going to take to get Allen? He said at the beginning of the season, "I'm not going to be captain check down, but I'm going to take what the defense has given me." Early, he was. Now he's not. What's it going to take to get him in a position where he's doing that, which to me effectively will open up that run game and make it effective, like Joe Marino said. So that's kind of a toss-up. Somebody give me some ideas. What's it going to take to get Josh Allen to start taking what the defense is giving versus trying to force the ball downfield or press the defense?
Well, I'll jump in. I was trying to let our guests kind of have the floor, but
Joe wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Did you have something, Joe?
Go Spence first.
I felt weird because I went first in the last two, so I was kind of giving someone else a chance.
Go ahead.
If you got something, go for it, man.
No, I want to hear from you.
Okay.
I want to hear from Bruce.
All right. Well, I guess the way I see it, I think that, and I know he's not doing what he was doing in the early games as far as like looking for those throws.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is, I think there's a confidence that has started to grow with our offense that, granted, we do need those short passes. Like we need those. But I think Josh now we've had so much success moving the ball down the field when he throws it, regardless of what, besides the third quarter, apparently. We just have success. So now he walks out there and it's like, look, I got Diggs, I got John Brown, these guys are going to be open. I'll get first down on 3rd and 17. It doesn't matter. So I think that confidence and that, like, seeing what's happened throughout the season, like I don't remember who said it early on. I think it was Bruce. We have a completely different offense than we looked at last year. Like most of the same players, but a completely different offense. We couldn't throw the ball worth anything. And now, like, it's like, dude, we're top. We have the
number one in yards,
number one receiving. Like our receiver, we have our number one receiver is the best receiver in the league as of right now. That's insane to me.
Wildest dreams land. I've said it 100 times. We're living in wildest dreams land with this offense.
So while I'm saying I agree that we need to do those things, we're also 7-3. Could have and should have been 8-2. Our defense is starting to play better. I'm not the guy to sit here and complain about stuff now. Like, look, we don't have the short throws the way we had them in the first couple of weeks, and we're not running the ball as well as we should. Once our offensive line gets better, like we just talked about, and then once, certain thing, when we get healthy, man, I'm not complaining about anything. Keep doing what we're doing. We're 7-3 for the first time in forever. Let's get this done.
Yeah. Joe?
I'll be honest with you. I have a hard time poking holes in Josh Allen and the way he's playing the game. What is he? I think he's 5th in the NFL when it comes to yards per game passing. I mean, the production in the passing game has been exceeded my wildest dreams this year. I know he leads the league in total passing, but obviously there's some guys that need to play 10 games and Josh already has. So I think the passing production has been really outstanding. And so I'm comfortable with his approach and what he's doing and how he's attacking defenses. I mean, there's some evolution that needs to happen there and there's steps that he can take, but from an output, I have a hard time with really coming too hard at Josh and saying, well, I wish you'd throw it short more. I mean, you're completing north of 65% of his passes, 287 yards a game, and touchdown productions there, scoring productions there. So I kind of want Josh to just keep what he's doing what he's doing. Learn, obviously, there's different types of defenses he has to attack better, but
no, it's great. And I want to ask you this question, Joe. Josh Allen was 285 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions Sunday in a loss with a potential game-winning drive. It was nearly a walk-off game-winning drive. We have found Josh Allen's floor, in my opinion. Like, so this to me was a bad, and it was funny because I said in a bad game, you're talking about a quarterback that like did this still, and it's going to get lost. And people were like mad at me that I said he had a bad game. Like, this to me was a bad game for Josh Allen. What else do you need to see from him? What else do you need to see from Josh Allen to make him the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills for the next 10 years? We're talking another Patrick Mahomes, $500 million contract.
Oh, $500 million contract, Joe. I think you might be a little bit. I'm not putting him in that range, but I'll tell you this. I mean, what do you want? What do you want? I mean, Josh Allen has been one of the best 5 or 8 quarterbacks in the NFL this year. Like, you have it. He's here. This is him. He's playing at that type of level. So, I mean, unless you're just not satisfied for anything other than Patrick Mahomes, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, obviously we wish the sample size was bigger, but it's growing. We're 10 games into this thing, and we think he had a bad game on Sunday. And I think you're right, Joe. I mean, the Seattle performance gave us some evidence that the first 4 games of the season were a little bit more of what he is regularly going to do. So his arrow has been pointing up. He's continued to answer questions outside of like opportunities that haven't come his way yet that are about to be here in terms of winning in the playoffs. Unless you're not satisfied with anything other than Mahomes, you should be pretty damn happy with Josh Allen and be ready to commit to him.
Bruce, are you happy?
Absolutely, I'm happy. I think that excellence is a measure of how well you do something multiplied by how long you do it. And so at this point, the only thing that matters with Josh Allen is time. That's it. Because if he was this good, right, he never got any better than this. This is it. This is as good as Josh Allen's ever going to be. But you knew you got this level of quarterback play for the next decade. Would you sign up for it? I would.
Oh, yeah.
I would sign up for this level of quarterback play for the next decade. So at this point, it's not a matter of checking the box. Can he hit this peak? He's already hit that peak. Now, there are still questions to be answered, but most of them revolve around time.
Right.
It's simply a matter of time. And so with Josh Allen, it's not, is he good enough? It's, can he stay this level of good? Obviously, there's a parallel universe out there where Josh Allen completely collapses, right? And then we have a different discussion, right? But the fact of the matter is, if he stays this good at this point, I don't need to see certain things from Josh Allen that I haven't seen before. I just need time. Right. I just need sample size because at this point, we're in the middle of what I would call Josh Allen's first really, really good year. There's plenty of people who would disagree with me and say that 2019 was a really, really good year for Josh Allen. I would disagree with that. I don't think that 2019 was a really, really good year for Josh Allen. I think he was a below average passer in 2019 and a tremendous runner. And that ended up kind of averaging out for him to be okay. He was okay.
Right.
And if all I got was 2019 Josh Allen, then probably not. But if all I get's 2020 Josh Allen, sign me up.
It's good stuff. We got a super chat. We got our first I know you were going to say something, Jay Spence.
No, it's just refreshing though that like when you said, would you sign up for this for the next 10 years? Collectively, everybody's like, yes.
Yep. Give it to me.
That's refreshing, but go for it. I'm sorry.
Give it to me all day long. Yeah, because I've lived through the last 20 years and I know it's a garbage quarterback that we all want to believe and fight over. John DeFazio, welcome into the program. Thank you for the super chat. We need to go back to utilizing the jet sweeps to stretch the perimeter that will open up lanes between the tackles and provide better attack angles. Also, we do great with run pass option action of jet sweep. Anybody want to take that? Do we need to do more jet sweeps?
Quick. Now I agree with him, but it's just funny to me because early in the season, that's all we complained about. And even going before the season started, why do we have to keep McKenzie? We don't even have to do jet sweeps. They already know we're doing them. Get rid of McKenzie, get rid of the jet sweeps. We do them too much. Right. Now we want the jet sweeps back. I agree with him, though. I'm not judging his comment. It's just funny because, Bills Mafia, we go in circles with what we want.
Anybody else?
I hate that it's necessary. You have to do it, but it's because you have slow running backs. Right. This is what you have to do. You have to commit players to manufacture space to hold people because your guys aren't quick enough to and through the hole. And so to me, it just speaks to a very incomplete backfield construction in terms of skill sets. And you need to do it for your running game to be effective. I hate that it's ineffective. I want to bring up a stat here right now among running backs in the NFL that have ran the football at least 40 times this year. There's been 63 of those. When it comes to yards after contact, Zach Moss is 39th. Devin Singletary is 29th. These guys aren't getting anything more than that's being blocked for them. They're not winning post contact. And part of why is because they're taking on players head up because they can't get to edges, right? They can't break pursuit angles and give themselves advantageous positions to take on contact because they're slow.
Right.
So you're seeing some flaws here in the makeup and construction of these skill sets based on how the Bills want to run the football. So, you better get McKenzie going because you're not manufacturing enough space to get a couple of high 4.6, 40-yard dash running backs through holes that close really quick in the NFL.
Super good. I think it's interesting to me that even with the McKenzie stuff and like when we see it now and like McKenzie gets like scooped up right away on that jet sweep, Bills Mafia is like, okay, we've seen enough of the jet sweep. Like they're waiting for it. But what's funny about that is they're waiting for it. Like, it's a situation with this team right now that, like, when they do it enough, or when they do it at least once in a game, when Allen fakes that jet sweep, like, the defense collapses on it because they're kind of being prepared because McKenzie's got real speed. And, like, that's when, like, that offense kind of starts clicking, is when the defense is looking for that. And when they don't feel like they have to look for it as much, they kind of back off. We got another super chat. Scott Van Loo, my man Scott, is up in the house. Thank you for the super chat. I don't know if you guys suck first day, but Stephen A. Smith send straight up, or said, I'm guessing, that the Dolphins are going to win the rest of their games and win the AFC East, and the rookie quarterback is going to be the MVP. I don't know if you guys suck first. I don't know. What
I'm sure he's saying, I don't know if you saw First Take, but
gotcha.
Stephen A. Smith.
Gotcha.
I'm guessing. I'm hoping that's what you mean, Scott.
I did not see First Take. We're going to get to that. So, Scott, stick around because we are going to talk here in a minute. We're going to transition to the AFC East picture and the playoffs as far as that goes. Before we do, Jay Spence.
Yes, sir.
Cole Beasley busted out for 11 catches on 13 targets, 109 yards and a touchdown. As we talked about already, he's always open. Stephon Diggs, he's always open. Last year, he averaged the most yards per separation for any wide receiver in the league. This year, I think he's leading again. The dude is open. Are the Bills not using him enough?
That's a tough question, because, like, when you have a couple games like he's had, like this past Sunday, he's had a couple of them now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where it's like, you obviously want to use him in the right situations. But like you said, he's always open. I feel like if Josh wanted to, with the receivers that we had, he could literally throw to Cole every play.
Sure.
Like, he could literally throw to Cole every play. He just doesn't do it. So, I mean, in that sense, when you're talking about somebody constantly being open, somebody who's very good at creating yards after the catch, somebody who's very good, like, when you talk about that, the short answer to it is yes. But the thing is, it's hard to say we're underutilizing him when you also have Stephon Diggs leading the league in receiving yards. You have John Brown, who last season was our number one receiver. And so now he's into this 2 role, and he hasn't been as healthy as we would like him, but he still had very good games. A couple weeks ago, he had 99 yards, you know. Yep. So the thing is, yes, we probably are underutilizing Stephon Diggs, and he's leading the league in yards. Yeah. It's just the, you know, it's a gift and a curse at the same time to have an offense with these guys who are so talented. Yeah. So, you know, the short answer is yes. I think we're underutilizing all of our guys on offense, Josh included.
Yeah. So, Joe, to that point, you said you want to see more effective runs, and it's become, for a lot of, since the greatest show on turf, it has kind of become, you know, known that, like, teams that throw wide receiver screens, short wide receiver passes, that kind of, and the Patriots made a living on it. Like, that manufactures runs, right? So I guess that's the same question I have for you. Like, can the Bills substitute that effectiveness you want to see on the ground? Can they substitute that with Cole Beasley?
I think it's important for us to identify when we talk about Cole Beasley and his production from the slot. He has the most receiving yards and receptions of any slot receiver in the NFL. He has 601 receiving yards from the slot. Next closest is CeeDee Lamb at 557. Tyler Boyd, 528. Juju Smith-Schuster, 424. Nobody else is above 400. I mean, the Bills are getting the best production in the league of any slot receiver from Cole Beasley. Oh, here's the thing. I do simultaneously agree that there is more opportunity to get Cole Beasley involved. And whenever Josh does, I feel like you see some really good efficiency in the passing game. And so I'm okay with number one, first of all, acknowledging that the Bills are getting the best production from the slot of any player in the NFL from Cole Beasley, and wanting more. I want to say something about Scott's super chat that I think is really important if we can.
Yep.
Man, I spent a long time in my life being very, very frustrated with this type of conversation from people like Skip Bayless or Stephen A. Smith or Colin Cowherd. And then you get even more frustrated when you find out how much money these guys make. You know what I mean? It'll drive you nuts. There's something that's really, 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 really critical that I want everyone to hear. Those guys are very different than what we're doing, right? If you listen to my podcast or Bruce or you guys, we're trying to give answers. We're trying to give reasons. Those guys aren't interested in that. They're interested in advancing discussion. And the fact that that comes up in a super chat today is exactly what they want to do. They don't care if they're right or wrong. That's not their objective. Their
Right.
objective is to draw attention and advance discussion. So don't get caught up in the hot takes of the Cowards and the Baylesses and the Stephen A. Smiths and Max Kellermans. All they want to do is create discussion.
You know what, Joe? I actually said the other day when Joe Miller and I did the other show, I was saying, like, since I've started podcasting, and it's not like a vain thought. I don't think that I'm, any much better than anybody, but I've stopped watching a lot of the ESPN shows and FS1 and all that stuff. And not because that those guys aren't good. They're getting paid to do what I'm doing out of the love of, like, I just love it.
Mhm.
The thing is, though, what you just said, it makes so much sense. So what they do is they don't even watch the stuff that they're talking about.
Mm-mm.
They have guys or ladies who will give them quotes to say or certain stats to push, and then they'll say it. If you want real content that's talking about the teams that you love, whether you're a Bills fan or not, if there's somebody in here who isn't a Bills fan, even basketball, hockey, football, go to the people who religiously watch this stuff and care about it. Bruce had a chat. The four of us have a chat earlier when we were talking about doing the show tonight, and Bruce put this thing in there, and I'm like, yeah, it's very evident. I need to quit podcasting because I'm nowhere near on the level that Bruce is. But these are the type of guys you need to listen to, because when you have the questions about, well, why is it on third down that this always happens? Bruce is the guy that can tell you, well, it looks like this is what's happening, and this is why. Joe Marino is the guy that can tell you that. So, nothing against Stephen A. Smith and ESPN, but if you want content, you want answers like Joe mentioned, and you want like real quality content, check these four guys out. There's a ton of other guys on Buffalo Fanatics. There's some guys on Buffalo Rumblings. There's a ton of guys and a bunch of other networks that you can find some good quality content.
Sorry,
good. I had to give my rant. I'm sorry.
Good. Ladies and gentlemen, you were watching the Hump Day Hotline, special Hump Day Hotline, a bi-week edition, Megapod edition with myself, your host, Joe Miller. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired. My co-host, Jay Spencer King. We got two special guests, Joe Marino from the Locked On Bills podcast and Bruce Nolan from the Bruce Exclusive. And this is the best segue because we're going to transition to the playoff picture. And my guy, Brian Bowers, gives me the segue question. I said this before the season. We could have three receivers with 1,000 yards like the Colts had. Also, what is going on with this team in the third quarter? And don't anybody answer, because I'm gonna gift wrap this for Bruce. Bruce, I got this for you, buddy. You ready? So
I'm ready. I was born ready for this.
Coach McDermott finally admitted, because we've been speculating for a long time that the Bills have had an issue in the third quarter. The Bills are +7 in point differential for the year overall game wise. However, they're +51 in the first half, +2 in the fourth quarter, and they're -46 in the third. The woes at this point, admitted by the coach, are real. How do they fix it?
Okay, well, I can't speak to every third quarter for sure, but I can speak to the third quarter against the Cardinals. And when I went back and I looked and I charted all those plays, what I saw Vance Joseph bringing pressure packages that were messing up the Bills' offense. And it's hard to tell sometimes when there's a protection breakdown. It's always difficult to tell whether or not it's the quarterback, the line, or the running backs. Devin Singletary went to the right where he should have gone to the left. And that there's an unblocked player. And you see that there's a zone pressure here where they were bringing slot corners from, the Gatorade box, right? They're bringing Gatorade boys water boys off the sideline. They're bringing those people and they're dropping a defensive lineman into coverage. And when you have players like Marcus Golden and you have players like Hassan Reddick, they're apt to drop into coverage so that Byron Murphy and Budda Baker can come off the slot and bring pressure. So there's only bringing 4, but they're a different 4. And that requires communication with your offensive line. And with all of the issues that the Bills have had getting the interior of their offensive line right, there were some breakdowns there in protection. Now, it's hard to tell whether or not that's Josh Allen or whether that's the line, but I'll give you a great example. So there was a play where the defensive tackle in the third quarter was going up right there, one-on-one. Brian Winters, he's there. John Feliciano, he's there. Feliciano's got him. And then all of a sudden he starts to drift, and Feliciano passes him off to Winters. And the second he passes him off to Winters, Winters immediately starts looking for work to his right to help Darrell Williams. And so literally John Feliciano just escorted him into the gap all the way back to the quarterback. That's a miscommunication. John Feliciano thought Brian Winters was going to be there, and
Right.
I have no way to know, because I don't know the line calls. I have no way to know if Brian Winters screwed up or if John Feliciano screwed up. But I know well enough to know that's not supposed to happen. I know that escorting a defensive tackle into a B gap is not supposed to happen. I know that much. So there are protection breakdowns that come along with having the different five every single time. We always talk about offensive line gelling, right? How important that is and how important communication is for the offensive line. That's an example of what happened. In addition, Josh Allen held on to his first read a little bit long and delivered the wrong type of ball a couple times. So I'll give you a great example. One of the interceptions to the Patrick Peterson, one of the things that actually got picked instead of the other ones that could have gotten picked and didn't get picked, right? So Stephon Diggs is on a dig route, which I thought was just hilarious. I little chuckled to myself here. We got a dig route from Diggs. And then Dawson Knox is in a deep over, okay? And so Diggs is bracketed, and one of the bracket defenders actually is the one who ends up making the pick on a ball that was intended for Dawson Knox. If you were playing Madden, Josh Allen pressed and held Dawson Knox button instead of tapped his button. It was the wrong type of throw. And because of that, they're just little tiny execution issues that keep popping up. And what I have found is that execution issues and the quantity of them is directly correlative to the shuffling that you have to do at different positions. This is why gelling is so important. The longer you spend together, the less chance you have of these mental mistakes. And these things just pop up at inopportune times, and one or two of them on a drive can derail the whole thing. And drive by drive, play by play, it was always something in the third quarter. At no point did I look at the play calling and think, gosh, Brian Daboll's just really, really decided to take his foot off the gas. At no point was that the case. It was individual errors that occurred in protection and in execution that put us back. And then we have a positive play, and we'd have something else that would bring us back. And it happened over and over and over again. And that's when the offense sputtered.
Super good. Joe Marino, this is what I want to ask you, because this is like, I'm in like BF content heaven right now for me, because like what I have at my disposal between the three of you guys is amazing. So to pile on that conversation that Bruce just gave, which was very well said, this isn't just an offensive issue. This defense is letting up as well. And if you watched back the video, or the tape, which I have, the gap assignment, like the lack of discipline, Mario Addison rather, crashing down, like, which basically is allowing Kyler Murray to pull that ball out and run right around him and head to the end zone. This defense has got issues. They've got discipline issues, and they're showing up big time in the third quarter. Can this Bills team win? Can they win? Can they make it to the play? The Dolphins are hot on their heels. Can they win? Can they make it to the playoffs if they don't get this fixed?
You know what's so disappointing about that Cardinals game is you've got a bunch of finesse offensive linemen that run a zone scheme that are the line of scrimmage. It's your defensive line. That's straight up embarrassing. Look, the Bills have some defensive line that are playing out of position because Star Lotulelei opted out. They're not getting the one tech production they were hoping from out of Harrison Phillips. Now you have Ed Oliver and Vernon Butler and Quentin Jefferson playing one tech, and that's not really what they do. I'm going to bring up an idea that I've had, and I'm probably going to spoil a lot of what I plan on talking about early next week, because I think this applies to the question you asked, Joe. And it's not going to specifically answer your question when it comes to the Bills defense in the third quarter, but I think it does give us some hope as we think forward at 7-3 with the Dolphins at 6-3. They're going to beat Denver this week, folks. They got their backup quarterback. The Dolphins are humming. They're going to be 7-3. Yep. So, honest question for everyone to think about, and maybe this will help us. Which players on this roster are actually exceeding your expectations right now? Which players on this Bills roster are actually exceeding your expectation? I have three.
Yeah.
The whole list: Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Darrell Williams. Every other player on this roster is either meeting or performing below expectation. Why is that exciting? Because there's a lot of opportunity to get better with the players that you have.
Like the way you think.
So we thought the Bills played their best game against Seattle, and I think they did. That was their best game. That was their most complete effort, and that kind of got us away for a second and just sidetracked us and really gained a lot of momentum. But at the end of the day, I really think what I said is true, that outside of Allen, Diggs, and Darrell Williams, there's nobody else on this team that's exceeding expectations. Here it is. Here's the bye week. You got a tired football team. Sean McDermott said it 2 or 3 different times that the scheduling jumble with Tennessee and Kansas City took away a mini bye that they were planning on. The bye comes in week 11 later in the season. It kind of threw off their rest structure. And you had a tired football team with a bunch of guys that haven't really played their best ball. But you're 7-3. This team has a lot of opportunity to get better with what they have.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Marino, preach, brother.
Yeah.
Preach.
Yeah.
Got a couple super chats stacked up here. John DeFazio, thank you again for the super chat. Okay, deep dive. If we run 10 personnel or specific formations successfully in the first half, we have enough tape to attack pressure from our own self-scout. Our issue is we adjust in the fourth quarter instead of set up for the third. Anybody want to take that one?
I'll jump on that first. I don't feel that it's that we don't adjust. I think the problem is, and it's a good problem to have in a sense, and I know a lot of people are going to yell at me in the chat about this, but I don't care. The thing is, the Bills are normally they're doing better in the first half than the other team. So it's difficult to make adjustments to things that you don't know that they've adjusted to already.
Sure.
So what happens is the third quarter is normally when that other team adjusts, and then the Bills fans are looking at the Bills' performance and are like, what the hell is happening? What is going on? And then once the Bills figure out what the other team is doing, then they adjust, and it's normally closer to the fourth quarter. And then that's when Josh does Josh things. So while it's a great question, it's a great point, I don't think is that, we're slow with it. I just think that they need to figure out how to adjust even before the other team adjusts to us. And it might sound difficult, but I mean, what I'm saying is, like, even if we go into it with a completely different game plan in the second half, that's just a surprise. We have to do that, but to go into the second half the exact same way, and that's what we do every game. We come out the first half, we look great. Then the second half, we come out and we're trying to do the same thing, or we're trying to slow it down a little bit. We can't do that. We have to, in a sense, you kind of have to go into the game thinking of, okay, if there's 2 ways to beat this team, which way are we going to do it in the first half? And then which way are we going to do it in the second half? You have to switch it up. You can't come out with this, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Sure.
Yeah, but in the NFL, you can't do that because they're going to adjust, and then you're going to lose the third quarter, and then we're going to have what we had happen Sunday.
Sure. Bruce, thoughts?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I do think that other teams are being forced to adjust to the Bills. Other teams are being forced to adjust the Bills because they're up at halftime, because they come out strong. And that does matter. That's part of that as well. But in addition, I think that part of this is that when you have a team that is explosive, that the Bills have been on many occasions this particular year, and I feel weird still saying that, when you have an explosive team that other teams have to adjust to. I remember Rex Ryan one time saying that he came in with 2 game plans against Peyton Manning and neither one of them worked. Now, part of that's just because it's Rex Ryan, but the idea isn't necessarily flawed. The idea of having 2 game plans isn't necessarily flawed, but you don't know how they're going to react to you in game. You don't know what they're going to roll out after halftime. And so I think part of it's the fact that it's a little bit like rock, paper, scissors. When I throw rock, I throw rock, I throw rock. Okay, well, I think if I keep throwing rock, at some point you're going to throw paper. And so I should start throwing scissors. Well, it's not that simple. It's not, there's only 3 things you can do in football. I have to see what you're going to start throwing before I can counterpunch. Yep. That's just part of the way this is. And part of the third quarter stuff is that. Part of it's that. It's always going to be that. I'm not making an excuse for that. It's not an excuse. It's just a factor. It's a reason, but it's not the excuse. Ideally, what you would like to hope to have happen is for a team to go, okay, I think based on their tendencies, they are going to react this way, and I need to be prepared. But I will bring back to the Seattle game. When in the second half, the Buffalo Bills started getting lots of pressure from the Seattle Seahawks, which team went to their screen game first?
The Bills.
Was it the Bills or was it the Seahawks?
Mm-hmm.
It was the Bills. We reacted to their pressure schemes before they reacted to ours. Mm-hmm. The game was out of hand before the Seahawks were like, maybe I should try a scheme. Maybe I should throw a screen pass. I don't know. I mean, Brian Schottenheimer sitting there looking at Russell Wilson like, I don't know. You want to try something? I know it's crazy, but you want to try it? Yeah. And the Bills did it first. Yeah. So I think it's a little bit overblown, not because there's not a problem there, but because there's factors associated with that we understand. And when I look at the Cardinals game and I see the way that the Cardinals were able to run zone pressures against the Bills, and I think, I don't think this is third quarter. I think if we had a better offensive line and our preferred starters, this probably wouldn't have been an issue.
Yeah, the only I agree. Almost entirely. The only place that I would disagree with you, Bruce, is it seems to me the Bills come into the third quarter after half in kind of a let's see what you're gonna do. Like they kind of, it seems like they attack that third quarter with, we're going to make some adjustments and we're going to kind of have a plan, but we want to see what you're going to do first. Just because, where I disagree is, just because they got to the screen pass first against Seattle doesn't mean that they always get to the solution first before the other team. A lot of times I think the Bills are like finally figuring it out around the 5-minute mark of the fourth quarter. It's like, oh, this is what they're kind of doing to us, but that's just me. Super chats are stacking up. Scott Van Loo, thanks for the super chat, buddy. You know what really pissed me off is the Hopkins catch. It's all right on Wednesday, and we're still talking about it, whether it's analysts or people on Facebook. That was just me. Once in a lifetime lucky catch. We're trying to put it to bed, bro. So we talked about it a little bit. We haven't talked about it on the show at all.
No, but you can't put it to bed though. Like that catch is going to be on highlights for years to come. If I ever have kids, my kids will see that catch. Like that's same thing with the in Minnesota when Diggs made that catch. You still see that commercial now.
Minnesota Miracle.
Like you're going to see this catch. So I'm sorry guys, we're Bills fans and it hurts because it happened to us. We can't put this to bed. This is one that we're going to live with.
I appreciate the sentiment. I don't think he's talking to us because we have not talked. It was in my highlight reel, but we have not talked about it. Joe Marino, the Dolphins are coming. So I was pretty upset with the whole Tua is coming thing that was on Good Morning Football a couple weeks ago, but clearly the Dolphins are making a statement. They're coming on strong. And after the winners of 5 in a row, which to me is insane that they've won 5 games in a row. How do I want to ask this question? Are they now a real threat to the Bills' AFC East hopes? And is the way that they're winning sustainable?
They're absolutely a threat. Getting ready to 8 in a row. They've got Denver with their backup quarterback this week, and the Jets and the Bengals. So yeah, get ready for it. Yeah, they're definitely in it. And look, I think you can poke holes in their formula for winning. And Bruce will tell you that what is it? I've heard him say it 1,000 times. How you win is a better indicator of future success than the fact that you did win. And so you can poke holes in that, but I look at
here. All of us are
better person. So yeah, you could poke holes in it for sure. But they're winning, and this didn't just happen overnight. They had a winning record over their last 9 games last year with one of the worst rosters ever assembled, and they had some quality wins over that stretch, and now they're 6-3. So they finished 5-4 last year. They're 6-3 now. Like this isn't like random. They had a great offseason. They have a really good head football coach in Brian Flores that is very Sean McDermott like. And there's a lot of exciting things defensively. He's got that scheme humming. He's got the people that he needs to run it. His cornerbacks are healthy, and Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. Bobby McCain's been unbelievable at free safety. Raekwon Davis is coming into his own as a nose tackle. Emmanuel Ogbah's been one of the best pass rushers in the league. A great scheme with the people to run it. Tua has given that offense exactly what they're hoping for, which is a very dynamic RPO dynamic to what they're doing. He's making throws with anticipation. He's accurate. He's been decisive. Their offensive line, they got some questionable pieces, but it's gelling with some of these young players. Like you could sit here and deflect and not take the Dolphins seriously and all that, but yeah, they're in it, and they're in it to disrupt what Buffalo has. And so the Bills need to take care of their business, because if they don't, they're not going to host a home playoff game in January like we all want them to.
Yeah, Bruce, I'm reminded of a Baltimore Ravens, Trent Dilfer led Super Bowl team that won basically because of their defense. Is the way the Dolphins are winning, to Joe Marino's point, is it sustainable, and is it indicative of future wins for this team?
I think it's indicative of future wins against lesser competition. I think that the idea that you can have a good defense and win the Super Bowl isn't actually accurate. You can't have a good defense and win the Super Bowl. You have to have a legendary defense to win the Super Bowl based on that. And is the Dolphins defense legendary? Are we talking about the 2000s Ravens? Are we talking about 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers? with multiple Hall of Famers.
85 Bears.
85 Bears. I don't think we're talking about that level. We're talking about the beginning of 2019 New England Patriots defense,
right?
Which is really good. And they are really good defense. And yes, you can beat Denver, and you should beat Denver with that defense. You can beat Cincinnati, and you should beat Cincinnati with that defense. But the Dolphins have the Raiders, the Chiefs, the Bills at the end of their schedule, and the Patriots, who are always a tough out. Just ask the Ravens if the Patriots are ever a tough out. And so, yes, I think it's sustainable at a certain level. I don't think it's sustainable unless they get better offensive play. But the problem is, by the time that their defense starts to level out and starts to normalize, Tua's going to have games under his belt, and he's going to continue to grow. And so the Dolphins concern me. But they don't just concern me because their defense is scary, because I do think their defense is going to normalize at some point. It's still going to be very good, but I don't think you're looking at a historic defense. But the problem is, by the time that happens, Tua's going to have enough games under his belt. He's going to start to feel more comfortable in a Chan Gailey offense that it absolutely fits what he does. No pun intended with the fits. But, I think that the Dolphins should be concerned. We should be concerned about the Dolphins for sure.
Yeah. And a rhetorical question. I don't want anybody to answer it, but are we starting to get concerned that Tua can't throw for 300 yards? I'm just wondering. I mean, we're 3 games into his career and he hasn't thrown for 300 yet. So I think that just needs to be said. We got some super chats stacked up. So I need to get to these real quick before we finish up. John DeFazio, thank you so much for the super chat. Love your takes. He's talking to Spence. That's what I was trying to say, Spence. I think it's either planning for pressure, BS verse man, or pressure versus deep zone. It's really that simple, which is good. Scott Van Loo back in the house for the 3rd time. Matt Milano contract is up, I think, this year with him being into a prom. Do you sign him to a short-term deal to see how he does and maybe go out and get a veteran and free agency someone as far as the draft to develop? I have a comment on this. So the greatest ability is availability.
Yes.
Matt Milano is not going to sign a 1-year prove-it deal. The reality is somebody is going to give him $15 million a year based on the ceiling or the floor, right? I mean, this defense, this Bills defense looks completely different when Matt Milano's playing and he's healthy. And somebody is going to give him a contract, 12, 15 million a year based on what they could potentially give him. They're not going to give it to him based on necessarily what his injury history is. So there's no way, in my opinion, that the Bills are going to skate on some sort of a 1-year contract or 1-year prove-it deal or 2-year prove-it deal, like, hey, with a high incentive-laden deal. Does anybody disagree with that statement?
Absolutely not. I don't disagree with that statement at all. There has to be an agreement between a player's representation and the player and the team on what that player is. And there is no chance that a team is not going to offer Matt Milano money. That's just not going to happen. So it would work for the Bills. Sure. In an ideal world, you say, oh, okay, well, let's do that. But the fact of the matter is that's just not what's going to happen. Somebody's going to offer Matt Milano $13 to $14 million a year, probably, to be a really good weak side linebacker for them. And that's just going to happen. So the Bills have a decision as to whether or not they're going to either pay that, let him walk, or tag him.
Right.
There is no, quaternary option where it's, well, if I can just sign a 1-year prove-it deal. He's not going to take a 1-year prove-it deal. You know what a 1-year prove-it deal is? The tag. That's what it is.
And that might happen. There's a good chance that might exactly be what happens. But yeah, man, the biggest thing for me is it's such a weird paradox because this defense looks so different with Matt Milano in it. The problem is the dude cannot stay on the football field. It's just really weird. So John Fazio back in the house. Overrated Tua is running a simple offense. The league will catch up and check his stats at the end of December. Is the world, somebody talk to me about this. Is the world going to crash down on Tua? Are they going to start throwing stuff? Because he came out, I think, this week and said, you know what? I thought the NFL was going to be harder. Anyone?
The reason why the NFL caught up with Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Chan Gailey offense is because Ryan Fitzpatrick couldn't throw the ball down the field. It wasn't because Chan Gailey's offense is intrinsically crazy simple and the league caught up with it. It's because Ryan Fitzpatrick couldn't throw the ball down the field. And so what happened was defenses started to collapse on them. In addition, the best year of Ryan Fitzpatrick's career with Chan Gailey happened with the Jets, where he had reasonable offensive weapons. With the Bills, it was Stevie Johnson and Donald Jones. So that's a secondary issue. And the reason why the league was able to catch up to the Ryan Fitzpatrick-led Buffalo Bills. Those are not the issues with Tua. Tua can throw the ball accurately down the field, and the Dolphins have weapons. So because of that, I don't think you should be expecting the exact same thing. I'm not saying Tua is never going to run into a roadblock. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that this idea that it's going to repeat itself, history speaking, because that's what happened with Chan Gailey offenses. You got to look at the situation with Chan Gailey offenses. Ryan Fitzpatrick as your trigger man is going to get you by. But Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing the ball outside the seams down the field was a problem.
Big time.
And once defenses realize that there's certain things that a quarterback can't do within the scope of the offense, then that becomes problematic.
Yep.
And that's part of being a franchise quarterback. Part of being a franchise quarterback is not having very obvious tells that the defense goes, hey, you know what? This guy can't do that. It's that simple. He just can't do this thing. So as such, we can run defenses that naturally cede that thing to the quarterback, knowing he's not capable of taking advantage of it.
Yep.
And until Tua shows that he's not able to do those things, I'm going to continue to believe that there's a reasonable possibility that this world's not going to collapse down on him.
Good stuff. And you're basically barking straight down the Lamar Jackson tree as far as like what defenses have realized that he cannot do. And they're trying to force him to do things basically inside that scheme. Joe, you were going to say something. What were you going to say?
I feel like I'm at a difficult point here with this Tua discussion because I'm reading these comments and Bills Mafia wants to slander Tua, and I think there's a lot of bias going into those takes, and I have to learn the role that I need to play in this discussion because I really disagree. I mean, I scouted Tua heavily at Alabama. I know the player he is. I know what he's being asked to do. I've watched the all 22 of his last 2 starts. I see high level throws. I mean, you don't think this guy has arm talent? Pop on the Arizona game and look in the fourth quarter and watch him roll to his right. He's on the right hash and hitting Mike Gesicki outside the numbers on the left hash, 19 yards down the field, flat-footed with pressure. Tell me he doesn't have arm talent. I mean, I'm very impressed with Tua. I really appreciate that he's played the role that he needs to. It's not his fault that he's getting defensive turnovers that are crazy and punt returns and really good production around him. He's playing the role that he has to for this football team, which is tremendous maturity for a guy who has only played a few games. If Josh Allen looked like Tua did after his first 3 starts, we would feel very differently. I think Bills Mafia is going to have to be careful here to not just poke holes in Tua and be in denial mode about what he is and the skill set that he has and what he's capable of doing with really good coaching. And they haven't gotten the weapons right around him yet. He's got a couple of good players, right? I mean, Devontae Parker's a nice player. Gesicki's a good tight end, but collectively they don't have enough speed. They've got some really weak links on their offensive line. They've got like their 5th and 6th running back playing. There's reinforcements coming here. They got 2 1s, 2 2s next year. They're in the top 10 of available cap space next year. And we can be in denial mode all we want about this Miami team maybe be a little pissed off that it's coming together a little quicker than we all wanted it to. And it's taken this long for the Bills to get to this point. But don't be in denial mode about the Miami Dolphins and Tua and what he's shown so far.
Super good, super solid. Go ahead, Jay Spence.
And I definitely agree. Joe Miller would tell you all summer I was saying Tua, like people are sleeping on Tua. I get the hip injury. I get it. He has to come back and be healthy. But if he's anything close to what we saw in Alabama, like I'm just telling you, the kid is deadly accurate. He does have the arm talent that you talked about. He can stand there and fling the ball around like it's nothing. And as soon as he, like you mentioned, as soon as he gets some receivers, we thought Josh had it bad, and he did when we had Kelvin Benjamin and whoever else that we had that year.
Andre Holmes
it was a rough year. It was a very rough year. That's basically what Tua's dealing with right now, except you're right. He does have Parker. He does have good, he has a good tight end as well. So he has a couple pieces there. Josh Allen has Shady. We had something for him, but he didn't have what he has now. When Tua gets a receiving core and a line to block properly and running backs that can like really just do great things like Shady did for us when we had him. Listen, Tua's coming, and I get it. Like you just said, man, Bills fans, there's some bias there. We don't want to respect him because he's in our division.
Sure.
Listen, Tua's coming. He's coming.
We're all aboard the Tua train here, and I'm gonna wreck the Tua train. So I did this last night as an exercise as I was on for the Rico Report with Judge and with Clay. We're gonna go around the horn. We're gonna start with Spence. We're gonna go to Bruce, and we'll end with Joe. So rank these 3 quarterbacks right now. Joe Burrow, right? Herbert, and Tua.
What's the criteria here? What does that
Right.
mean?
Like, what are we ranking them on?
If you got to take one of these guys. If you're going to take one of these guys, or potentially who's going to be the best of the three of them. Like if from what you see right now, which one of these guys is going to be the best quarterback in the NFL?
If I'm starting a team right now, I'm taking Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow. Bruce.
Yeah.
Burrow to Herbert.
Yeah.
Marino.
Yeah, I'm there. I think at this point, I just have to stay true to where I saw these guys as prospects. So that's where I had them. And here's the thing. I think if you ask the Bengals fans, they want Burrow. If you ask the Chargers fans, they want Herbert. It's okay if they're all good. There's no rule saying that they can't all be good players.
Yeah.
I mean, and they've been ahead of the curve.
The thing that I see in Burrow that I like, though, and I'm sure, like, to me, he has some of the intangibles that I feel like Josh has. So and I'm sure everybody who's on that level hates to lose, but you can really see it in certain guys.
Oh, yeah,
and Burrow, man, he just refuses to, even when they obviously take losses, because they do. He tries to will that entire team to a victory every single week, and that it factor and that mentality is something that I look for in a leader for my team. Yeah. So it's one of the reasons why I love Josh. But to your point, man, Tua, Herbert, both of them, man, like Herbert's been playing lights out. Like I felt bad for Tyrod at first, because it's like, man, he loses his job in Cleveland because he had a concussion, and then Baker came in and played great, and now this time the team doctor punctures his lungs or whatever, and now he loses it. But in reality, if you watch Herbert play, you can't be too bad. Like, you can't be mad. It's like, look, Tyrod, I'm sorry, we will give you your job back, but this guy is doing your job better, literally.
Yeah. You know what's so Billsy? This is what's so Billsy. Hey, Buffalo Bills fan, Bills Mafia. You guys are finally going to get your franchise quarterback. And by the way, he has the ceiling potential to be the best quarterback in the NFL. And like, it's going to take him a while to develop. However, not only are you going to get like a franchise quarterback, 3/4 of the AFC is also going to get like amazing franchise quarterbacks pretty much around the same time. So, I mean, the league is flush with young talent. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening or watching the Hump Day Hotline on the Buffalo Fanatics Podcast Network. I got 2 more questions, and we're going to do roundtable discussion. Bruce, I'm going to start with you, and I want each of you to pick a different guy, if you can do that for me. So, take somebody opposite. This offseason, the Bills signed Vernon Butler, Mario Addison, Quentin Jefferson, A.J. Klein, and Josh Norman to this defense, all of whom have played subpar compared to the offseason expectations. In your opinion, which one of these guys turns it around and has the biggest impact on the last 6 games of the season? Bruce first.
Wow. I'm going to challenge the question right off the bat, because I think Mario Addison and Quentin Jefferson have played well. I think Mario Addison and Quentin Jefferson have played well. I think Vernon Butler has not played well. AJ Klein has not played well. But then again, I didn't expect him to play well. So he hasn't played subpar of my expectations for sure. And Josh Norman, it's been well documented how I felt about Josh Norman and the signing that they have there. So sure. I think that of the people that you just mentioned, the person who has the greatest chance of being able to have the biggest impact in the next 6 games relative to their impact in the previous 10 games is Quentin Jefferson. Okay. I think Quentin Jefferson, after coming from Seattle, playing a lot of 3-tech, playing a lot of defensive end, Quentin Jefferson has been rolling out at 1-tech and alternating with Ed Oliver. And that's not something that Quentin Jefferson, ideally, I'd like to see. Now, part of the run defense problems that we've seen is because we're rolling out Quentin Jefferson and Ed Oliver as 1-techs, and whenever we really need to, hold up against the run, we throw a 287-pound generous defensive tackle in at 1-tech, because he's got, great center of gravity and he's got good strength that he can hold up to double teams. But right. Quentin Jefferson is playing out of position because Ed Oliver's playing out of position because Star Lotulelei is not here and Harrison Phillips is underwhelmed. So I think that if Harrison Phillips is able to come back and be healthier the last part of this season and be effective, I think that has a trickle and a ripple effect through the rest of the defensive line. And I think one of the players that affects the most is Quentin Jefferson.
So I totally strategy failed on that whole entire question. I should have started with Spence, Marino, and then gone to you 3 to ruin my question. But that doesn't mean I'm going to ruin it off the hook. This is the first thing that I want to say, first of all. So we just went from 150 people in this room to 260, which means a bunch of you just logged off of other people's shows. Here's the problem. You should have started here. This is where you should have been all night long. So welcome to the 100 of you that just tuned in to the Hump Day Hotline with my man, Jay Spence the King, special guest Joe Marino from the Locked On Bills podcast, and special guest Bruce Nolan from the Bruce Exclusive. Joe Marino, which one of those guys you got?
Hear me out.
It's always a good start.
Well, because look, it's going to sound really dumb when I say it. And then when I explain myself, maybe it's going to be better. But I'm going to go with Aaron James Klein. And the reason I think that he is the answer.
You know the initials, what the initials stand for.
I didn't know that. I looked it up on Pro Football Reference while Bruce was talking. Here's why I believe that. Right now, we've seen way too much AJ Klein. Way too much. He's been a little better over the last couple of games. The reason too much of him is Matt Milano and Tremaine Evans have been hurt. Well, I think coming out of the bye here, I know that Milano's going to have to miss the Chargers game, but come the 49ers game, you've got Milano back. You have Edmonds, who's obviously looking a lot better. AJ Klein's going to go back to the role he was brought to fill for this football team, which is 10, 15 snaps a game of base defense and special teams. And within those 10 to 15 snaps a game, I think the Bills have learned over the last 10 weeks, and it'll be 11 weeks by the time Milano gets back, what AJ Klein brings to the table for this defense. Maybe it's that blitzing type stuff and using him in certain situations that don't put him in situations where it's not ideal for his skill set. So I think him taking on an actual role that makes sense for him instead of having to be Matt Milano or to beat Tremaine Edmonds will put him into a lot better situation to succeed. And I think we'll be a lot more satisfied with him for 10 to 15 snaps instead of the 60, 65, 70 snaps a game he's playing right now.
Right. Super good. Spence, you can't take the two that they took. Who you got?
Well, I'm going to actually go with Josh Norman. What I'm thinking and what I'm hoping is that the fact that he's been somewhat injured and then he had COVID and then other things that have happened throughout the year. What I'm hoping is for the second half of the season, we got a cornerback with fresh legs, with, some experience in the league as being a good player. He's experienced in this type of defense. He has a lot of, so I'm hoping that experience and that expertise plus the rest throughout the season will play a factor into the second half of the season, where you might have some teams who had an earlier bye, where now, their receiver, you put a fresh body on them. Let's see how this thing works. So I'm hoping that our secondary steps up, and Josh Norman is a huge part of that. If we can have another cornerback, not even to be Trey White level, just to be something close that where, we're not getting destroyed over there. Could you just imagine if we took away 2 or 3 of the first down conversions that we get on third down, when you always see either Teron over there or Levi over there, or if you take away 2 or 3 of those first down conversions,
sure,
that's a huge that means so much for the team. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. Sidebar before I ask the last question, and we're almost done here. And this has been a thrill. The same guy that just said this, peace, delusional Bills fans, right before he posted that, said this. End of conversation. I'll be back when Tua wins the Super Bowl as a rookie. Just saying.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
So yeah, and it lines up perfectly for us delusional Bills fans. With my very last questions, we'll start with Jay Spence. We'll go to Joe Marino. We'll finish off with Bruce. And I'm going to ask it different. If the Bills miss the playoffs, or I should say, if the Bills don't win the East, let's start there. If the Bills don't win the AFC East, and I don't want to hear because the Dolphins won more games. So a reason, if the Bills don't win the AFC East, why is it, Jay Spence?
If the Bills don't win the AFC East, it's because Sean McDermott needs to be fired.
Woo.
No, I mean, there's no other explanation. If we do not win the AFC East or make the playoffs or whatever scenario you just try to throw out,
I think the Bills are going to make the playoffs at 10-6, 11-4 for sure, or 11-5 for sure.
If we don't win a division at this point, we're 4-0. If we crap to bed now, if it gets to the point where if it comes down to that, then I got it. I understand, but we should win. There should be no reason why we go through this season and we get to those last 2 games and it's not determined, unless Miami just has a great, like you said, if they start winning and we have the same record, okay, we need to beat these guys down. There's no excuse.
Well, if it comes down to the last game of the season, you're talking about Tua and the Miami Dolphins in Orchard Park.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So we should beat them that week. So there's no excuse for me.
Sure. Joe Marino.
So if you go across the last 10 years, 2009 to 2019, and you apply the 14-team playoff rules that apply moving forward, there has been 7-2 teams that missed the playoffs under that format. All right. So is this Buffalo Bills team really going to be the one? And that extends to 8-3. So if the Bills beat the Chargers, spoiler alert, I'm going to pick them to do that off the bye at home. There's never been an 8-3 team that hasn't made the playoffs or wouldn't have made the playoffs under this format. So I don't believe in, like crowning yourself before it should happen. I think we learned a valuable lesson on that Sunday. But this team's playoff caliber, to steal a Sean McDermott phrase. I expect them to be in the playoffs. If they don't, then teams like the Raiders really got hot. The Colts got hot. The Bills crapped themselves and the Dolphins ran away with it. Is that going to happen?
I think what's crazy to your point, and I sat on the couch drinking my coffee. It was 7:30 in the morning. Good Morning Football was on, and they were talking about the AFC standings. And there are obviously you've got the Steelers undefeated. You've got the Chiefs at 2. The Bills are at 7-3. I think there's one other team at 7-3, and the amount of 6-3 stacked teams, like it goes all the way through the entire playoff picture. And there's 2 teams in the hunt with 6 wins, and the Bills are on a bye this week. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, where are these wins coming from? Like, who are these teams beating? Because there's like everybody's kind of like mashed and huddled all together there at the top. So as much as your point is super pointed about like in this format, the playoff format that we have and blah, 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 and 8-3 and yada, 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 we're in a position where like there's pressure on this Bills football team that they've never felt before. It's one thing to like have pressure to like win a game. It's something else when there's like the dude is chasing you. Like there's teams chasing us right now, which is crazy.
And I recognize that. But I mean, and I think we're in this moment where all of the things you said are true, Joe, but not to sound really cliche or stupid, but like they're going to play the rest of the games, right?
Oh.
I mean, like this sorts itself out.
For sure.
And when you think about the way the Bills are playing and what they have and some of the stuff we've talked about here that leads you to believe things can be better going forward, despite being at a really good spot, I don't know that. I mean, unless Josh Allen gets hurt and Matt Barkley's running this ship, good God, you want to talk about bad running offense, take away Josh Allen.
Yeah.
They're going to the postseason. Unless they really just are a fraud. And I don't think that's the case with this team.
I don't think they're either. Bruce, you've been quiet.
Well, I'm just waiting my turn, sitting here behind my lovely picture here. I'm trying to be the miracle, Joe. That's what I'm trying to do.
Bruce, you haven't blinked the entire show, man. It's like, are you going to move or?
It's impressive, right?
It's unbelievable.
I bet you didn't know I was an accomplished ventriloquist.
It's unbelievable.
The only thing that I would change is I would probably try to figure out a way to get your mouth just to do that. And I need to put headphones on you. Like, it's not right that you don't have headphones on, but go ahead.
I think if the Bills were to miss the playoffs, Josh Allen got hurt. I think that the biggest weakness on this team is the drop off from QB1 to QB2. I do not trust Matt Barkley to be able to run effectively, especially given the fact that we're not dealing with the same level of defense that we dealt with in 2019 and 2018. We are winning this year in large part because of Josh Allen. If you take away the reason why this team is winning, then you cannot expect them to win anymore. We're not winning because we have a stellar running game. We're not winning because we have a stellar defense. We're not winning because we're getting tons of turnovers and fluky stuff. We're winning because this passing offense, which is driven through Josh Allen, is outscoring opponents, and they're doing it at a 7-3 pace.
Right.
So if you remove Josh Allen from that equation, then that's what happened, because that's the thing that's making the engine go right now.
It's good stuff. No, we are living in the world of Josh Allen. I've said all offseason that this is the season of Josh Allen. I said that we will know, in my opinion, who Josh Allen is by week 8. Like, he's either going to regress or he's going to begin to show us who he is and what his ceiling can be, which he has done. This has been an awesome experience. I just want to take a moment just to thank you guys just for being a part of the show. Jay Spence, Joe Marino, Bruce Exclusive. Do me a favor. Let's go around the horn real quick. And Jay Spence, tell me about you one more time for the fans and the watchers. Who you are, what your show is, one final thought, and then we'll do Bruce, then we'll do Joe, and then and then I just got it.
Before we do, right? I was gonna say before we do, let's get the super chat in here.
First. Eric, welcome into the show. Thank you for the super chat. What an strange, unique number, 1714. That would be Josh Allen and one Stephon Diggs. The last 33s. Bills won the game on a Captain Clutch throw to the best receiver in the league. Defense played well as we needed to win besides the laps. Go Bills. What needs to happen after the bye? Does anybody want to take that? So he's literally asking what needs to take place. I guess let's do that. So each of you, what's the one thing that needs to happen after the bye? Jay Spence.
Well, for me, the one thing that has to happen after the bye, we need to really just be consistent, stick with what we're doing. We need to get healthy.
Get healthy.
That's it. Let's get healthy and then do what we've been doing the last 2 weeks. I'm happy with the direction the team is going in. The defense is getting better. The offense seems consistent. I mean, the running game, we do want to see that improve, but getting healthy that's the part.
Super good. Bruce.
I think that you need to be able to run the ball when you have to. I don't think, like Joe Marino said, I don't think that running needs to be a 60% part of your offense, but it does need to be an effective 40% of your offense. And right now, if you do something 40% of the time, and 40% of the time it works none of the times, if that's the case, then you're going to be hampered because you can't just completely abandon it, but it needs to be, effective at certain times. I did an entire article for Buffalo Rumblings last offseason about there are effective times to run the football. And when those downs and situations come up, you need to be able to do it. Now, it shouldn't be a foundation of your offense. If I have to pick one, I'm going to pick passing over running for sure. Yeah. But it needs to be a part of this. Now, part of that's going to come from isolating the variable, which is the offensive line. Like Joe said, getting your preferred starting five is going to be part of that. But the other part of it's making sure that, okay, now that we have our starting five, what's the appropriate scheme? It's almost like a flow chart. Do we have the preferred starters? Yes, no. If yes, then it's start evaluating scheme and go from there.
Good stuff. Joe Marino.
Put Mitch Morse at center, John Feliciano at right guard, Cody Ford at left guard, and tell them to put their big boy pants on and move some bodies out of the damn way so you can run the ball when you need to.
I love it. I love it. And Peter, by the way, I had shown already your super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah. Cuomo unleashes Bills Mafia if we need it week 17. So I did throw that up there. It was just in the middle of one of the other conversations. With that, we're going to wrap this hype train up. So again, we're going to go around the horn. Jay Spence, Bruce, Joe, Jay Spence. Each of you tell me where we can find you, what your shows are, and one final thought, whatever that may be. It could be about absolutely anything. Go ahead, Jay Spence.
On Twitter and Instagram, you can find me at Jay Spence the King. You can find my show, The Code of Conduct, on Buffalo Rumblings Podcast Network on Tuesdays. This past week, we had Mark Maddox joining us, the past Buffalo Bills and Arizona Cardinal linebacker.
Solid content.
Yeah, it was a really good show. If you didn't get a chance to catch it, you probably should. Honestly, it was a good show. Next week, I got my man Rico, Bingity Bing, joining me on the Code of Conduct. And then the week following, I have the Buffalo Bills all-time leading scorer in points, Steve Christie, joining me.
Stop bragging.
Stop. It's not bragging. I'm telling people what to listen to. Like, come, come kick it with me. But no, it's gonna be a fun time. We got some good stuff coming up. And then also on Sundays, you can catch the chop up with Mookie, Hawkins, and myself.
Gotcha. Any final thoughts? Anything?
Final thought, honest to God, just enjoy this, Bills fans.
Right.
We're 7-3. Like, I get that there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to break down and a lot that we want to be negative about when it comes to like, oh my God, we can't run, or oh my God, we do this, or oh my God. Listen, let's just enjoy this ride, man. When's the last time you really can think of a time that these games mattered to you like that? Not just mattered because you love the team, but they mattered because the wins and losses really matter at this point in the season like this.
Even with the looming Dolphins, is there anything better than the Bills-Dolphins rivalry when both teams are good? Bruce, give me what you got.
My name is Bruce Nolan. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Bruce Exclusive. I am the host of the Bruce Exclusive podcast, which drops on the Buffalo Rumblings Podcast Network Thursdays and Fridays. I don't have any of the good guests. Literally none of the people that Jay Spence just talked about are going to talk about me. Like that's never, you are never going to get that kind of awesome content from me. So I apologize ahead of time. I'm doing whatever the opposite of bragging is at this point, but I do have a final thought. It's a fortune cookie thought for you all. And, I know that things, New York is going to orange as far as the COVID protocols go, and things are getting shut down and people are feeling pretty bad. And I have a fortune cookie thought for you. And my grandfather told me this one time, a long time ago. He said, if you feel like dirt, maybe there's something growing inside you. So I just want to offer you guys a little bit of encouragement and tell you that I'm thinking about you, and that I hope that you're I hope that your spirits are lifted.
We are Bills Mafia. Joe Marino.
Joe Marino is my name. At the Joe Marino is my Twitter handle. Host the Locked On Bills podcast, daily podcast on the Buffalo Bills.
The Grind. You are we can change your name to The Grind.
Man, well, see, you can't do that because Kyle Krabs, I co-host draft podcast with Kyle Krabs, and he's grinding the tape, so can't do that. But love it, obviously. He's got a good football team here with this Buffalo Bills team, and remember, I think that there's only 3 people that are exceeding expectations: Diggs, Allen, and Darrell Williams. Jordan Poyer's playing great, but he's always playing great. He's meeting expectations. If I were to leave you with any thought, I would just say be nice to people.
Super good. Super good. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching the Hump Day Hotline on the Buffalo Fanatics Multicast Network. I am your host, Joe Miller. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired. That is my host, as always, Jay Spence the King. And as he said, you can find him at on Twitter at Jay Spence the King. Super special, amazing thank you to Joe Marino and Bruce Nolan for joining us. What a fun time this was. So that was some pretty intense.
What's your final thought? You can't have us have a thought and you not have a thought.
My final thought is this. I don't think there's a doubt in the world that the Buffalo Bills are still going to win the AFC East. I think that as much as a believer in Sean McDermott is, or I am in him, and I believe that who he is as a man and the leadership qualities, as everybody here probably knows, I'm a big student and a fan of leadership, and he is the right man for the job. And in my opinion, he will have these guys fine-tuned. I put in my show on Monday that this to me is an inflection point, this game and this bye week, and the Bills could come out either not trusting each other anymore and completely implode, or they can come out and they could literally, this could be a launching point into whatever that next step is. I firmly believe that this defense is finding itself. I firmly believe that Josh Allen is still progressing, and we still haven't seen his ceiling yet. And I think that they're going to get this run, to Joe Marino's point. They're going to put the best 5 out there, which we all know who that best 5 is. And once they do that, I think that they're going to make some noise in the playoffs. And that would be my final thought. So if that makes me a delusional Bills fan, I am he. So that work?
That works. I appreciate your take there, or your final thoughts.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for joining us. My name is Joe Miller, Jay Spence the King, Bruce Nolan, Joe Marino. Go Bills. Everybody around the horn. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills. We'll catch you next time.